realistically speaking, I think Mike Zimmer is likely going to get fired at some point this season if things don't start to improve. And given the fact that this is the bye week, despite being 1-5, I don't think it's going to happen right away. After the bye week, we go to Lambeau Field to play the Green Bay Packers. Then we got the Lions, the Bears, and the Cowboys. So there's a 4 game stretch there where if we don't come out of that with a few wins, I think it's likely that he gets fired midseason. But until then, likely scenarios that they wait till the end of the season, even despite the contract extension, because that's just money out of the Wells pocket, right? That doesn't count against the cap. There's no penalty for firing a head coach. They just cut him that check and send him on his way. So if I don't think is really a question anymore. I think it's just a matter of when. So I would approve of doing it right now. Just rip the Band-Aid off, solve all your problems. As I said in the Burn It All Down video, make Gary Kubiak your head coach for the remainder of the season because all these games coming up are rather meaningless. We're just going to be working on development of the younger players, Justin Jefferson, Cam Dantzler, Jeff Gladney, who you name it. So really, it's the moral victories, like who cares? It's just a matter of figuring out what we're going to do for 2021 and beyond. Now, there's a lot of really good candidates coming up this offseason that could fulfill a head coaching vacancy. And I would like to turn our attention to the offensive side of the ball. We've had a defensive-minded head coach for a number of years since Brad Childress. I think it was 3 years with Leslie Frazier. And then it's been 7 years with Mike Zimmer, and it has yielded no results. We only have 2 playoff wins since we've gone down this path, and it's gotten us nothing else. And then, of course, most recently we have the two playoff games where we go to the NFC title game in 2017, and we get punched in the mouth by the Eagles, and we lose 30-something to 7. And then the same thing happens 2 years later in 2019, where we go to San Francisco and get punched in the mouth by them. So the defensive-minded head coach, that is a thing of the past. I think in the modern age of the NFL that we need to start looking on the offensive side of the ball. So I have 4 names up here on the board that I am really interested. My number 1 choice would be Eric Benami. I think he's everybody's number 1 choice, if we're being honest. 51 years old, currently with the Kansas City Chiefs as the offensive coordinator for the past 3 years. He was a former running back for Colorado, and he spent some time as a running backs coach in Colorado as well. So he's been around for a while. He started coaching in 2001, running backs coach for Colorado, UCLA. And then the thing that interests me the most is that he has roots with the Minnesota Vikings organization, where he was the running backs coach for 6 years. I believe it was from 2004 to 2010. So he's been in Minnesota before, and it got me thinking, the last coordinator / assistant / member of the coaching staff for the Minnesota Vikings that went on to do bigger and better things was none other than Mike Tomlin, who has since won a Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And really, yes, they've had bad seasons, but they've never had a season this bad, where we're currently sitting 1-5. The Steelers always finish 8-8 or better. It's just that's how they do. It's a well-run organization, and they saw the kind of change that they could bring to this team with Mike Tomlin, and that's probably why they hired him, because he was legitimate back then, and I know Steelers fans today are kind of tired of him because he hasn't won multiple Super Bowls. They feel like maybe he's holding them back at this point, but still hard to argue with at least having 1 ring. If I had 1 ring, I wouldn't care what the hell we did. He gets a stint with the offensive coordinator position in Colorado for a couple of years, and then he goes to the Chiefs, where he's been for the last 7. Under Andy Reid, running backs coach for 5, and then, as we said, the offensive coordinator for the past 3. So Eric Bieniemy, I think, is definitely going to get a head coaching job this offseason. So if we don't take advantage of it this year, we will miss out on him. So I don't want to sort of, play mind games or beat around the bush. I want this thing to happen this year. Likely we'll have to wait for a while because the Chiefs will be in the playoffs, so we won't be able to talk to him or negotiate with him right away. So we'll probably be sitting with a head coaching vacancy for a while. And I think that's probably true for all of the names on the board here, because these are all playoff teams. The next name on the board is Brian Dable, 45 years old, started coaching in 2000, spent 6 years with the Patriots as a defensive assistant and wide receivers coach. And then he goes through a rough stretch where he doesn't really have like what you would call a consistent job, if you will. There's a word for it that I'm missing. But he spends time as the Jets quarterback coach, then 3 different offensive coordinator jobs over the next 4 years. until he finally lands on his feet again, back with the Patriots as a offensive, what was it, an assistant coach and a tight ends coach. I can't remember my own abbreviations. He spends one season as the Alabama offensive coordinator. That's huge. And then he's been the Bills offensive coordinator for the last 3 years, sort of since the Josh Allen era began. And every year, Josh Allen has shown improvement. So if we're going to go out and get a rookie quarterback this year, which we absolutely should try to get Justin Fields or Trey Lance, I think Trevor Lawrence is beyond our reach. I don't think there's any chance we can suck that bad and the Jets can accidentally win a number of games for us to leapfrog them. So I think Trevor Lawrence is out of the question. I think we're looking at either Justin Fields, Trey Lance. God forbid we'll have to settle for a Zach Wilson or a Kyle Trask. So the fact that he has been able to elevate Josh Allen in his third year to where up until maybe yesterday we were talking about Josh Allen potentially being a legitimate MVP candidate this season, I think that speaks volumes to what we would need in Minnesota if we were to take on a rookie quarterback for the next season. Next name on the list, Greg Roman, age 48, began coaching in 1995, spent a number of years with the Panthers, and then 2002 to 2005, he's the Texans quarterback and tight end coach. And then he runs into a number of different jobs over the next few years. Ravens offensive line coach. He's a high school offensive coordinator for one season in 2008. 2009 and 2010, he comes back up to Stanford as an assistant coach. And then the 49ers bring him back to the NFL in 2011 as an offensive coordinator. He's the Bills offensive coordinator for 2015 and 2016. And then for the last 4 years, he is the Ravens offensive coordinator. And they brought him in specifically, I think, to handle Lamar Jackson. Yes, in 2017, they didn't have Lamar Jackson. They didn't draft him until 2018. But what he's been able to do with Lamar Jackson, again, this is another offensive coordinator that got his quarterback in a position to win the MVP award, and voila, it happened. Lamar Jackson, love him or hate him, whatever criticism you have of his game, is an integral piece to this Ravens offense that allows them to remain in contention for a playoff push in a Super Bowl every single year now. It would probably be extraordinarily difficult to rip him away from this organization, as I believe, but it got me thinking, what if we could pair him with Trey Lance? Trey Lance has a lot of similar skills to Lamar Jackson, where he is a quarterback who is a threat in the air and a big-time threat on the ground. We haven't seen a lot of Trey Lance. I think he's only played 17 games at the collegiate level, but at the same time, if we're going to bring in a quarterback that has that skill set, wouldn't it be nice to have an offensive coordinator as a head coach who is minded in the mindset of getting the most out of a mobile quarterback that would bring the kind of skill set that Trey Lance has to the table? So that got me thinking that would be a really nice pairing. Last name on the board is the youngest. It's Arthur Smith, the current Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator, 38 years of age. He hasn't had a lot of experience. Most of it has been in Tennessee. He spent the first 2 years with the Washington football team as a quality assistant coach. He goes to Ole Miss for 2010, and then in 2011 he comes back to the NFL, and he's with the Tennessee Titans. So I would think I would go in that route with Arthur Smith, just based on what he's been able to do with Ryan Tannehill. The running game is strong with Derrick Henry. Of course, we don't have a Derrick Henry. We have a Dalvin Cook, so a little bit different situation, but at the same time, the running game is solid. He has the benefit of a really good offensive line in there, despite Taylor Lewan just tearing his ACL and being out for the season. So that sort of aspect would be welcome, in the fact that we're getting a young offensive-minded head coach, young in terms of average coaching age, if you will. But he would probably be my fourth or least favorite candidate. I mean, that's probably why he's the rightmost coach on the board here. But that was another name that I think would be interesting to go after. Coaches I absolutely want nothing to do with include Bill O'Brien, Josh McDaniels, and any defensive-minded head coach going forward. Bill O'Brien, because just the obvious train wreck that he turned the Texans into, and Josh McDaniels, because this is the guy that drafted Tim Tebow in the first round, and I want nothing to do with him. So that is a look at the coaches that I think could be potential candidates to replace Mike Zimmer if and when he gets fired this year or at the end of the season. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Who would you like to be the next Vikings head coach? What direction do you want to go in? Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.